Hi guys, it's Ms. Flaytez back with another video. Make sure you are following along with your guided notes. Today we're going to talk about battles and key events, so definitely the most exciting part of this chapter. Today's just going to be about the European theater. So I told you World War II, there are really two theaters going on. So I don't want you guys to get confused with all the battles. So this video is just going to be about battles in Europe, and then our next lecture video is going to be about the battles in the Pacific, okay? All right, so just to review some things that we talked about, because, we want to talk about this chronologically so it all makes sense. Just fill it out in your guided notes. Adolf Hitler, he was named the Chancellor of Germany in 1933. He creates a totalitarian Nazi government. Totalitarian, we know that means he has total and complete control over his government. You can't think for yourself. Whatever you want to do, it has to be approved by him. You can't have any thoughts going against what he believes, right? Demands Lebensraum, meaning more living space, obviously went against the Treaty of Versailles, right? So the first thing that he did to break the Treaty of Versailles, he annexes Austria in 1938. Next, he occupies the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia because he said that there were a lot of. And we also know that the world leaders were appeasing him at the Munich conference and says, that's fine, you can annex Austria, you can annex the Sudetenland, just don't do anything else. At the same time, he had the Nazi-Soviet pact with Joseph Stalin. We see Joseph Stalin in the right-hand corner with his famous mustache, right? This pact was signed in August of 1939. Germany signs a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, meant to keep Britain from entering the war, agree to split Poland among themselves. So Germany is on the western side of Poland, Soviet Union is on the eastern side of Poland. Poland is really a very weak country stuck in the middle of these two powerhouses. And Hitler said to Stalin, listen, I want to be your friend. I like you. I don't want to fight over land, but I do want more land. So how about I'll take half of Poland, you take the other half. We'll have this pact. We won't go against each other. It'll be good. Joseph Stalin said, great, I'm on your side. We'll just split Poland in half. Poland really didn't have a say. Obviously, the Nazi invasion of Poland in September of 1939 went against what all the other European world leaders said at the Munich conference. They said, Hitler, you can take Austria, you can take the Sudetenland, but you cannot take anything else. We are appeasing you this far, but no more. Obviously, Hitler went against what they said, and he still invaded Poland. He used German blitzkrieg to overrun Poland. Blitzkrieg is German military style, okay? It means lightning war. This was the type of warfare that they would use, meaning that they wouldn't just sneak into certain countries and linger and have these long, drawn-out plots. Blitzkrieg, lightning war. They went in, they overran the country, they did it quick, they did it fast, they got out, they got what they wanted very quickly. It was a powerhouse, a lot at once, okay? So that was the German fighting style, Blitzkrieg, lightning war, fast takeover, a lot of power all at once, okay? It was a quick German victory. Britain and France declared war on Germany. This is the official start of World War II because they tried to appease him for so long, but he invaded Poland anyways. We're in World War II. This is where we. So, first new thing we're going to talk about is France's Maginot Line. Massive defenses built along France's border with Germany after World War I. So if we look at a map, and I'm going to show you a map in a second, we know that France and Germany share a border. This is really bad for France because Germany is really the cause of World War I, the cause of World War II, and France always gets hit really, really hard. So because of the trauma that they faced after World War I, they decided they were going to build a wall on the border to protect themselves, okay? So as we see in this map, if you look more in southern France, not so much northern France, you see that is where they share the border with Germany, and that is where the fortifications of that wall was very, very strong, because that's directly the German border. As you move up north, the fortifications were a little weaker because they said, well, that's not directly a German border. Here we're bordering Belgium, so we're going to focus most of our artillery on the German border, not the Belgian border, okay? In this video, I know in the video that the first video I had, I played YouTube videos within the lecture. I couldn't really get it to work, so instead I'm gonna have you guys watch videos after the guided notes to just really reinforce what I'm talking about. And I have a video about the Maginot Line. It goes into details with the artillery and how the wall was built. So I'm just giving like a brief overview, and the video should reinforce a lot that we're talking about, okay? So the problem was France thought they were fine with these strong fortifications, but Germany easily just went around. Here, wait, I have a pen. Let's see if this works. Here's Germany, right? They're like, oh no, we can't get in, we can't get in. Just kidding, I'm just gonna go around and break through where the weak fortifications are. So not really the most intelligent design on France's part, right? So this eventually leads to the fall of France in May of 1940. Hitler's army moves through the Ardennes and around the Maginot Line. They were able to easily break through that weak fortification on the Belgian border, okay? You see in this cartoon, we have a woman that represents France, basically handing over her country to Hitler on one side, and then the other guy, who's this handsome guy right here? Benito Mussolini, right? Because they are best friends, they were partners, they had the same ideas. Reaches France's northern coast in 10 days, and France surrenders. So France is officially part of the Nazi Empire, okay? This is a big deal. Hitler goes on to a lot of winning streaks in the beginning of the war. He's gaining more territory, he's winning, and it's really not looking good for the Allies in the beginning of the war. Okay, the miracle at Dunkirk. This is a very interesting story. So this was in the spring of 1940. Allied forces were pushed to the beaches at Dunkirk. So Dunkirk is the very most northern part of France. And if we look at a map, we know that Great Britain is right above France, right? The only thing that separates northern France and Great Britain is the English Channel. And I'm going to show you a map of that in a second. So we have all these Allied soldiers. We have British soldiers, we have French soldiers that are fighting against Germany. They were in France fighting, and they lost to Hitler and his armies. So as Hitler and the Nazis are taking over Germany, the French and British soldiers are being pushed more north, until they're basically stranded on this island, okay? There were about 400,000 men stranded on this beach. Sorry, not an island, it was a beach in northern France. And the Germans were just surrounding them, okay? They were basically sitting on this beach to die. They had no way out. What eventually happened, French and British troops were rescued by 850 British ships. So we have people in Great Britain that are normal, everyday men. Say, does your dad have a boat? Your uncle, your aunt, they own a boat. You're with your family. You're in Great Britain. You take your boat that you use to go fishing on the weekends, and you cross over the English Channel. You go into a war zone. You go to this beach, pick up as many soldiers as you can to bring back to England to safety. And these are everyday, normal people that were just using their boat that they use for fishing on the weekends. Went into a war zone, saved as many men as they could, and brought them back to England. So that's why it's called a miracle, right? Because it's just everyday people going into a war zone. All right, so let's look at this map. It shows Nazi-occupied France, right? So we have Germany over here, and we know this whole thing is France. This is the German occupation zone in the yellow right here, okay? So really, they occupied northern France. This is the fall of France. I'm going to grab a different color. So Dunkirk is about right here. That's Dunkirk. So as you can see, the only thing that separates Dunkirk and Great Britain is the English Channel. So we had, again, our regular everyday people taking their fishing boats into a war zone, getting as many soldiers as they can, and then bringing them back to Great Britain to safety because the Germans were just surrounding them, okay? There was a movie that came out in 2017 about Dunkirk. Harry Styles is in it. It's a really great movie. It's really more so about war. It doesn't have any, like, love story or anything, so it's, you know, It's very factual. But I put the movie trailer in the video questions just for you guys to analyze the miracle at Dunkirk and what you think it was about. But I would recommend watching the whole movie because it was really good. All right, I think I had a question for you to analyze what the Nazi Empire or what the map of Europe looked like. You could use the map that I just showed, but also this map. So this is the Nazi Empire as of 1941. As you see, Hitler is very successful at this point in the war, okay? He has gained so much land to the east, to the west, and he's really just going for domination of Europe at this point, and he hasn't lost so far, is the thing, okay? But 1941, we're just at the beginning. We still have a lot more to go. Okay, the Battle of Britain. The Battle of Britain is very significant because this was the first win by the Allies. This was the first time that it was proven that Hitler can be stopped. I have a video about this in the video questions. Once we're done with the notes, I'm just going to give a brief overview, but the video about this has a lot of really cool statistics, and this is the biggest air battle to happen, okay? So the Battle of Britain lasted from July 10th of 1940 to October 31st of 1940. German Luftwaffe, so Luftwaffe, that is a German aircraft, okay? German Luftwaffe makes nightly bomb raids over Great Britain. Now, this is from July to October. This is basically 3 months where every single night they would bomb Great Britain. Every night for 3 months, okay? New technology allowed British Royal Air Force to hold off Germany and prove Hitler can be stopped. So 3 months, imagine that you're living in Great Britain during this time, okay? It's 7 o'clock at night. It's time for the nightly bomb raid by the Nazis. I'm gonna go down in my basement. I'm gonna go under the ground for cover. We're just gonna hang out there for a couple hours. We hear all these bombs going off. We hear buildings falling down. Once it's done, we're gonna get back up and we're just gonna go on with our everyday lives. Now, we also have the British Royal Air Force fighting the Nazis, Luftwaffe, in the air. And the Germans really didn't expect the British Royal Air Force to fight back as strongly as they did, which eventually made the German Luftwaffe retreat after 3 months. So I have a couple of pictures that I'm going to show you, and I want you to answer in your guided notes in 3 to 5 sentences. What do these pictures say about the British people during the Nazi attacks? So here we have a couple of kids. They're just hiding out. The bombs are coming by. It's just like a part of normal everyday life for these 3 months, okay? We're just going to hide for a little bit, wait for the bombs to be over, and then we're going to go on. Here's a picture of some of the destruction that the bombs caused. Here we have some people just hiding out underground until the raids are over. I really want you to look at their faces. Do they really look super concerned, or are they just relaxed, or are some of them having a good time? What does this say about the British people? Are they going to let this affect their everyday lives, or are they still going to move on and move past this? This is really my favorite picture. We have a woman and she's getting married. We obviously have all the destruction around her. But the British people really proved that they're still going to live their everyday lives, and they're not going to let Hitler and the Nazis affect them. And this is really their strength, their courage, and their hope is what really led to a British victory and made Germany retreat. He said, "We're bombing you every night, and you're still carrying on, and your army is still strong. Like, why aren't you being defeated?" Another one of my favorite pictures. So we have mass destruction from the bombs, but you know, this guy, he's a milkman. He still has to do his everyday job. He's gonna walk over all the rubble and deliver his milk like he's supposed to, okay? So again, what do these pictures say about British people? Winston Churchill, British Prime Minister at the time, he said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." So the strength of the British people, and that they never gave up hope, and they kept strong and didn't let Germany defeat them. The Royal Air Force kept going strong. The people kept being positive. That was really what was significant because it proved, Hitler, you may think you can defeat us, but you can't. And this was the first Allied victory. That's why it's important. All right, next we're going to talk about Operation Barbarossa. Again, I have a video about this that will go into more detail, but I'm just going to give a summary, okay? So this was in June of 1941. So let's think about what just happened, okay? Hitler tried to bomb Great Britain, trying to conquer that land, and he failed. So he realizes that he can't get the land any more west. He already went to France. He tried Great Britain. It didn't work. So what does he do? He fails in Great Britain. He decides he's going to go east. What's east? Soviet Union. Germany breaks the non-aggression pact and invades the Soviet Union. So Germany said, I'm going to have half of Poland. You're going to have half of Poland. And he did that. But then when he realized that he couldn't get any more land west of him, he got France, he couldn't get Great Britain anymore, and he just wants more land, he's power hungry, he decides, screw Joseph Stalin, screw the pact that we made, I'm gonna go and try to invade land to the east of me since I can't get any more land to the west of me. Soviet Union uses scorched earth policy and holds back Germany at Leningrad. This will make more sense once you watch the video. Yeah. And Germany moves on to Moscow and Stalingrad. I'm going to talk about Stalingrad in a second. So just think about the amount of travel that Germany had to do to go and invade Soviet Union, right? And we see we have Moscow over here, we have Leningrad over here. Okay, let's talk about Stalingrad. Here are some people. So again, Hitler broke the non-aggression pact and is invading Soviet Union, and this is really what caused Joseph Stalin to switch sides. So originally Joseph Stalin was an Axis power. He was friends with Hitler. We have this pact together. Hitler betrays him and invades his land, and Joseph Stalin says, okay, now I'm going to fight with the Allies. So Stalingrad, this invasion was from August of 1942 to February of 1943. Germany wanted to seize the field and capture Stalingrad, which is in the Soviet Union, really because of the oil production and natural resources that Stalingrad had. And Hitler said, well, if I own and capture this land in the Soviet Union, it'll really boost the economy of my Nazi empire that I'm building. Eventually, German troops surrender to the Soviet Union due to starvation in the cold. And this really happens a lot throughout history. Whenever anybody tries to invade the Soviet Union or they try to invade Russia, they usually end up surrendering because of starvation in the cold. That's exactly what happened to Napoleon when he tried to invade Russia, right? They really don't realize the logistics of the terrain, okay? They don't realize how cold it is. They don't realize that it's such a long trip and that if I run out of blankets, I run out of clothes, I run out of food, I run out of artillery, that's a big trip back west to try to get some things, right? Okay, the North African campaign. I'm just going to go through this really quickly. There really aren't any big turning points with the North African campaign, but it is significant to talk about. North African campaign or Desert War took place between 1940 and 1943. Before World War II, European powers held long-established positions in the region. Now, with this is exactly our nationalism and imperialism chapter, right? We know that the European powers carved out Africa. They said they're going to own different lands, and this is still going on up until World War II, right? Now, North Africa became the focus of lands battle between the Axis and Allied forces because if Hitler takes control of France, and France is now under his power, he doesn't only want the country of France, but he wants all the countries and territories that France owns. So yes, you have the land of France, but what territory does France have? France has territory in Africa because of imperialism. So now Hitler wants that land in Africa also, okay? It was fought mainly for two reasons. First was the Suez Canal, which was crucial to controlling the Middle East and the oil and resources in the Middle East. So Africa is really big for trade and resources, right? Same thing with imperialism, but basically what it is, Hitler is saying, I'm going to grow my empire and basically try to control all of Europe. I want the lands that and the territories that they owned in Africa and even the Pacific, right? General Bernard Montgomery took over at this point as commander of Allied forces in North Africa. We talked about him in our Rise of Allies lecture. While British troops in Egypt were pushing the Germans west, U.S. forces under Major General George S. Patton, we talked about him with our Rise of Allies chapter. He led the invasion of French North Africa with the codename Operation Torch. So Operation Torch, the objectives: to gain French-controlled Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, to assist the British in the Libyan desert, to open the Mediterranean to Allied shipping, and to provide a stepping stone for subsequent operations. So again, this is all about trade. This is all about resources, okay? Eventually, Axis defenses were shattered, and the Allies managed to squeeze forces until resistance in Africa ended with the surrender of more than 275,000 prisoners of war on May 12, 1943. So the Allied forces were able to get the Axis forces out of North Africa, which was a big win because, okay, yeah, Hitler might be taking over countries in Europe, but he's not going to get their territories in Africa, and that's one step of taking away the territories that Hitler owns, right? Okay, the Atlantic Wall. This was built 1942 to 1945. So we have this wall in the green that goes all the way from really the coast of Spain down here, all the way to Norway, Scandinavia up here. This is Hitler's defense, okay? Hitler had a massive defense built along Europe's western coast against invasion. Now before, think about this. Germany is landlocked, okay? So if there was an invasion west of Hitler or east of Hitler, they would be coming on land. Hitler never really had to think about a sea invasion before. But now, all of this is under the Nazi Empire because Hitler gains control of France, right? So now Hitler's empire is subject to land invasions, which he never, or sea invasions, which he never really had to think of before. So now that he owns land that's on a coast, he came up with this wall of defense, okay? Oh, no idea for this one, sorry. I did have a video, but it was just way too long, and I actually took a screenshot of the video and cropped it, so that's why it looks a little weird. But this was really, it sounds weird, but this is the best picture that I could find of what the Atlantic Wall looked like. It was basically just a bunch of booby traps. So if a ship tried to come to shore on one of the beaches, first it would be stopped here, then it would have to get through this, then it would have to get through the barricades and this. So it kind of slows them down as they're trying to get on the beaches, and that gives more time for Germans to attack because they're slowed down by these booby traps, okay? Also at the same time, you know, this is on the western coast. Hitler right now is really focusing on the east. He's focusing on gaining more of the Soviet Union. So we're kind of missing as many tanks as you would hope on the Atlantic Wall because a lot of these tanks are being used in the east against Stalin and his massive army. Think how many people Russia has. Think how big Russia is, okay? All right, these are some real-life pictures of what's left of the Atlantic Wall. All right, D-Day. You have probably heard of D-Day before, really one of the most significant events in World War II. So who is this man, this commander? We talked about him in the Rise of Allies. It's Dwight Eisenhower, right? Massive invasion of Europe, plans by Supreme Allied Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower. Remember, he was the Supreme Commander of all Allied forces in Europe. He plans the D-Day invasion, and then he later becomes President of the United States. Like, who has a resume like that? Very, very accomplished man, right? So the D-Day invasion, they decided that Normandy, France, would be the best location to invade. This is the beaches of Normandy. You've probably heard of this before, okay? Now, this invasion was a huge win by the Allies and really eventually led to the fall of the Nazi Empire, the fall of Hitler, okay? Remember in the beginning, Hitler was winning a lot. Then the first loss Hitler had was the Battle of Britain. Then he decided to invade Soviet Union. That didn't work out. He lost again. Then back on the western coast, there's a D-Day invasion, and he's losing again, okay? And this eventually ends. All right, D-Day invasion, we have the beaches of Normandy in northern France. We have the American troops, the British troops, the Allies coming in to aid. The D-Day invasion, it was June 6, 1944. Troops land in France to push into Germany. They start in France because it's occupied by Nazi Germany right now, and they try to regain that land in France and move in closer and closer and closer to Germany, right? Because we have like France over here and Germany here, so they land here and try to regain this land and try to get to Hitler eventually, right? How do I erase this? Okay. It was the largest land and sea attack in history. Now, I do have a video for you guys to watch and a question to answer to reinforce this, but really the best video to watch is from a movie called Saving Private Ryan. Tom Hanks is in it. Who else is in it? I forget his name. But the first 15 minutes of Saving Private Ryan is the D-Day invasion. I watched it when I was in college. I was sitting in my class and I actually felt like I was going to throw up because it's probably one of the most gruesome, bloodiest scenes I've ever seen, but it's very realistic, okay? If you can stomach it, I wish I could show it to you, but I can't because it's so violent. But if you can stomach it and your parents say it's okay, watch the first 15 minutes of Saving Private Ryan or just type into Google Saving Private Ryan D-Day invasion and you will be traumatized. This leads to the Allies regaining territory in Western Europe, like I said. This eventually leads to the liberation of Europe. And really, you know, the technology of the American soldiers and the grit of the American soldiers, because the United States really wasn't involved in the war a lot, and really until the end. But then when the American soldiers showed up, this was really a turning point for the war, and there were a lot of Allied wins, okay? Here are some pictures. So they're coming into the beaches on these boats. They come out of the boats and go into the water to storm into the beaches that way because, again, there are all these booby traps set up. The boat can't go all the way up to the beach. A lot of men barely even made it onto the beach before they died. This is a really amazing picture of what it looked like. All right, and then finally we have the Battle of Berlin. It was a resounding victory for the Soviet Union and the Allies. So think about this. Let me use purple. All right, we have Germany in the middle. In the west, we have the US and Britain coming in, taking over land to get to Germany. On the east, we have the Soviet Union coming in to take Germany. Germany is really fighting its own war on two fronts, on a western front and on an eastern front, okay? He has enemies surrounding him. United States and Great Britain come through from the Battle of D-Day. Soviet Union comes from the east with the Battle of Berlin, which is what we're talking about now. Like I said, France, US, and Britain closed in on Germany from the west. Soviet Union closed in from the east. It was one of the last major offenses of the European theater in World War II and led to the surrender of Germany, okay? So the Soviet Union came in and took over Berlin, which is in Germany, and this really led to the surrender with the help of the United States and Great Britain closing in on the west also. But really, it was the Soviet Union's help that really, really led to the surrender of Germany. I have an amazing video to show you guys when we I'm going to do another video. So this was the European theater, then I'm going to do the Pacific theater, then I'm going to do end of World War II. So I have a little bit more to talk about because there's a lot more that happens with the end of the war, but this is the last main battle, so that's why I added it on this slide. But when we talk about the end of the war, I have an amazing video that shows US coming in from the west, Soviet Union coming in from the east, and eventually Germany's demise in the war. All right, so the last thing, the video questions at the end of your guided notes. I have videos that I want you to watch and questions to answer to reinforce what we discussed in the lecture. The videos are really, really great. It'll really provide a great visual for everything that I talked about. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. And my next video is going to be battles in the Pacific. Good job, guys. I miss you.